Testing sound, testing sound. Not for long, I'll be right back. Just doing checkups and setups right now, so I'll be with you shortly. Testing sound. Not for long, I'll be right back. Just doing checkups and setups right now, so I'll be with you shortly. All right, testing microphone. I think that's a little loud. So folks, for those of you in here, we're starting in about 3 minutes. I'm just making sure I've got everything. I always panic a little bit with these live streams because everything gets a bit frenetic because it's just me with all this technology around me. So if you're in the chat, give me a wave, give me a shout, let me know you're here. And we've got about 3 minutes to go before we start. and then we'll, okay, what's happening here? Why has that happened? Okay. Yeah, so let me know if you can hear me. Right, testing microphone. I think it's a little loud. So folks, for those of you in here, we're starting about seems to be working. Just making sure I've got everything. I always panic a little bit with these live streams because everything gets a bit frenetic because it's just me with all this. There we go. Okay, great, fantastic. All right, now I think this camera is a bit weird. Let's get that right, angles right. I've got a few things to show you on the camera, so make sure you can actually see it. That looks okay, maybe a little high. Okay, charts are up there. Can you hear me, folks? Can you hear me? Testing. Testing microphone. Can someone give me a wave? Give me a +1 if you can hear me, or a thumbs up, or anything. I'm not getting any answers right now. Okay. All good? Anyone? Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Thank you. There is a bit of a delay, a bit of a lag, because I'm on the other end of the world to most people. So it's got to get from my servers through Africa to the YouTube servers and back to you to wherever you are. And that's pretty slow, given the technology that we've got currently. All right, folks, welcome to this live stream. I really appreciate you being here. It's not as rushed today because it's Sunday and the markets aren't open, so we can spend a little bit longer together, I think. And I think we'll be okay with a little bit slightly longer. So I've made some notes. I've got some things to show you. I've got some reports to go through, including the COT reports and various other reports on natural gas. But I'm going to go through my notes and try and script this a little bit better than normal. So first of all, I've got written down here in my little book a set of notes which I'm going to follow. So forgive the formality and rigidity of it, the slight formality and rigidity. But welcome everyone. Thank you for coming. I really appreciate it, as always. I don't expect you to attend these live streams. I appreciate everyone being here. I don't expect it. And every time someone arrives at one of my live streams or watches one of my videos, I really, really appreciate it. And I think it's the fact that you're spending your time listening to me is something pretty awesome and something that I should respect and be thankful for. So thank you very much. And if you are here, which you are, because you're hearing me and listening to me, I'd really appreciate your subscription and your thumbs up. When you do that, your thumbs up, you just click the little button with the thumb underneath the video. And if you haven't done it before, of course you have. And what that does is it helps the YouTube algorithms get this video out, and it lets YouTube know that people enjoy this sort of thing, and they promote it to more people and make sure that you get it quickly and all that sort of thing. So your thumbs up would be great. And secondly, your subscription would be even greater. Now, I don't subscribe to a lot of YouTube channels or X channels. I think only 27. But so I understand that your subscription is valuable to you. But I really would appreciate your subscription. Once again, that helps this channel. It helps us grow. I'm bringing some new people on board, some experts in social media to help get this whole show going much better. We'll be doing a lot more content, a lot more interactivity, a lot more, all sorts of things coming up. And we're starting next week. So I'm really excited about that. But I have to pay people to do this, and I've got to pay for the software. and pay for the news feeds and all that sort of thing. And that's really my goal through this channel. So your subscription would be really, really appreciated if you could do that for me. And you could always unsubscribe as well, of course, if you don't find it valuable later on. It doesn't cost you anything. And whilst we're talking about subscriptions, if you do subscribe, at the end of this live stream, I'm giving away, I'm hoping, another 10 memberships to this YouTube channel. So those will be allocated automatically by YouTube to those who are subscribed and watching on the live stream. So if you're not watching and you're not subscribed, you won't be sent automatically by YouTube one of those free gifts, really, an entry to membership. So your subscription and thumbs up would be wonderful. I'd really appreciate that. Right now, so what I'm going to go through on this live stream is a few things. What news is coming out this week? I want to talk about what news there is. There's a lot of news coming out. I've got it written down in rough, but I'll also give you a link to where you can go and find it for yourself on this page. In fact, I might as well do that now and just show you what it looks like as we kick this off. So I'm going to go across to this page over here and see if I can get it. So this is the economic calendar from FXBook, myfxbook.com. It's free for everyone to use, and the web address is myfxbook.com. Just go there, and I'm not sure if you've even got to subscribe or put an email address in, but it's not arduous in any case. And there's a lot of extra stuff on myfxbook which might be useful to you. So if you go to there, you'll get onto this page, which is called Economic Calendar. And they're very accurate and very quick, and one of the best, and it's free. I've got various paid news sources for this, but this is really good, and actually the one that I use the most, so, and it's the free one. So that's at myfxbook.com, 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 and it's free, so you can get all your news activity there. And I've found generally it's updated within a few seconds after the news release. Some of them are a little slow, some of them are quicker than that, some of them are within a second or microseconds. This is good enough for our purposes. So myfxbook.com, I'll be using this for our stuff today. So I'll go through some of the news, and then I'm going to go through the NatGAS news, some of the NatGAS sites, and on here I've got just three really, actually. Barchart.com, where I can look at the COT report. That's also free. There's a paid subscription service on that, but you don't need to do it. I did subscribe to barchart.com and for about 2 or 3 months, and then I realized there was no need to, because the stuff I could get for free from there was just as good, or sufficient rather. So that's barchart.com, where you can get the COT report and all sorts of other information on futures and commodities and options and ETFs and whatever you want to know on barchart.com. And when we're talking about specifically natural gas, so we'll come back to that, talk about the COT report for natural gas. And then Natural Gas World's a good one. I only use 2. There are loads and loads of sites, probably about 10 or 15. But I found these 2 just for the key news, and that's all I'm interested in, is the main economic activity, rather than going through, we'll talk about storage reports and that sort of thing, the short-term fluctuation type news. Then we get the underswell news, which is the broad sentiment and the broad direction that the market's heading in, despite the storage reports. The storage reports really the kind of blips and the noise in between, unless it's extreme, of course, like a real blowout number. So so these 2 sites, Natural Gas Intelligence, that's this one, NGI, Natural Gas Intelligence, and Natural Gas World, will give you a broad brush overview combined with barchart.com, where you can get the COT reports. And they also have their own in-house assessment of what's going on in natural gas, which we'll look at too. So we'll talk about that. And then I'm going to go into the technical charts on natural gas, and then I'm going to go into the technical charts on other things. And before I get to the other things, and that includes gold and stocks and Bitcoin and oil and silver and sugar and cocoa and whatever else it is that you might be interested in, I'll have a free session, a free jamming session at the end, where you can ask me some questions on the things that I haven't covered perhaps during this session. And then we'll finish, and that might take about an hour in total, or maybe a little longer. We have a little bit of free time, but I'm going to force you to stay until the end if you want to get those free memberships. That's a joke. It's a bit of a ploy that YouTubers use. I'm not doing that for that reason, but it's going to flow naturally into that. So let's go and have a look at what's coming out this week in terms of news And I've written some of these down, and I'm going to refer you to the economic calendar over here, and I hope you can see that. Let's quickly make sure that's all coming through. Yeah, we seem to be on the right page. And let's go through this. I'm going to follow my notes and point out on here. Now, this just scrolls down. You can go from you can go backwards to the previous week, or you can go forward into the next week, following next week's, the following week from next week. But normally what's displayed on this one page that you'll upload is this current week's data. So that's what's on here. If you want the other stuff, you can click on the links above and below. So let's start with Monday. That's tomorrow. In fact, tonight, because we're talking about Japan, although it's in 8 hours time, technically it depends on where you live. For me, it's kind of, well, 8, we're at 15, 17 now, 25. So about 1 o'clock in the morning or so is when some of this data will come out, my time. And I don't know what time it is in New York, in California, or in Mexico, or in Taipei. I don't know. A little bit ahead of us, 7 hours ahead of us of this, if it's New Zealand, Australia, or Japan, and behind us, if it's a little bit behind us, so it's the UK, and then the rest in the US, several hours, about 6 or 7 hours behind me in New York. Right, so that's on Monday, and what's happening on Monday morning, in other words, basically middle of the night, my time, is we're getting the Japanese GDP, GDP growth rate. Now, this is going to be interesting because we are trading the dollar yen. We're also trading the euro yen right now, and we're short on both of those. Not going fantastically, not going badly, but just not going anywhere, really. The euro yen's looking quite good. Dollar yen has been going more or less sideways. We've been trying to take profit by taking profit on the dips and reselling the rallies. But every time we sell the rallies, it kind of stays there forever again. Then every time it drops, we take a little bit of profit, and then it rallies again. We start reselling and we get stuck there. That's where it's been for a while. Now, this is not the only number, GDP, that's coming out, and various other little numbers around that on Monday, tonight. There's also the BOJ, Bank of Japan interest rate decision of the Ministry of Finance, and that's on Friday. And that will have a big influence on the Japanese yen overall. And I don't expect that they're going to change rates, but the very fact that they don't do that might have an influence on the market. Or they might do a surprise change and raise their rates by 0.25 or 0.5% or something strange like that, whereas the other central banks are beginning to cut, as we saw last week. And we'll be talking about central bank cutting when it comes to Wednesday. Is the Fed going to cut or not? We don't know. Now, let's skip Tuesday. There's not a lot going on Tuesday. Is there anything else on Monday? Not really. So it's all about the Japanese yen on Monday. And there's a few other bits and pieces. And what's not marked in red here is not important, according to my FX book. Some of these numbers are actually incorrectly marked, but there's nothing there tomorrow. And then on Wednesday, we've got the Japanese PPI number. That comes out a little bit later on Wednesday. And we've got the UK GDP. So that's going to be interesting, considering that we've had, the EU has cut interest rates, Christine Lagarde. And we don't know what the UK is going to do next. But I think this GDP number will have something to do with it. And we see also that the HMRC payrolls change numbers coming out. So again, jobs and inflation and GDP, those are the three things really that are most talked about, I suppose, when it comes to inflation at the moment. So those are going to be interesting numbers. But the big numbers come on Wednesday. Now on Wednesday, we've got, so that was Tuesday. Sorry, I got a little ahead of myself. So on Wednesday, we've got the Japanese PPI. Again, at about 1 o'clock in the morning, my time. So CPI, or GDP rather, GDP tonight, and then PPI coming up on Wednesday. So that's going to be useful because we want to know what's happening with inflation in Japan regarding the dollar yen. We'll talk about that a little later. And then we got the UK GDP coming in as well. That's a big one for the UK. And then, but the biggest numbers, that's all going to be overshadowed and dwarfed by what's happening from the Fed on Wednesday. And that's in the afternoon, New York time, 8:30 a.m. We get the CPI, core inflation numbers from the US. And a little bit later on, let's see how much later on, we get the core inflation, all the inflation numbers from the US. We've also got the crude oil changes from the US on Wednesday. And then later on in the day, 8 o'clock my time, so 5 o'clock, quite late in the day. I can't remember what time. I think it's about 4 o'clock New York, 4 p.m., something like that. We get the Fed interest rate decision. We don't think they're going to cut, but we may be surprised. There might be pressure on the Fed that we're not aware of, that they haven't elucidated properly or haven't been honest about it. There may be an odor of mendacity about what the Fed's saying and others are saying about the economy that we're unaware of, and that wouldn't be unusual. And so there could be a surprise rate cut. I think it's incredibly unlikely because if you look at the FOMC rate tool predictor, let's have a look at that. We've got a little bit of time today. And if I am droning on too much and you can't hear me, thank you. I can see you. I'm watching the chat on the other computer there. So if there's anything urgent that's gone amiss or wrong, please let me know. And what I was going to look at is the Fed rate, Fed Watch tool, the CME Fed Watch tool. Let's have a look at what the expectations are for this coming rate cut. Now this has gone a little slow. All right, so there we go. A 2.2% chance of a cut. So after we got that very strong jobs report, NFP report on Friday, this immediately dropped down to 2.2%. It was at 4.4, not very high. A month ago, it was at 8.4. Is that 8.4? And I don't know if I can scroll along here any further. No. So 8.4 a month ago, this is the chance of a cut, right? 8.4 a month ago, 4.4 a week ago, 2.2 after the jobs report on Friday, the non-farm payrolls, and we've now dropped to almost, and basically when this is below about 90%, you could count that as just about zero. So I don't think we're getting any rate cuts, and we're going to stay at the current rate, 97.8% chance of holding still and steady at 5.2 to 5.5%, the target inflation rate for the Fed. So that's going to be super interesting if they do anything weird. I don't think they're going to. I think it's highly unlikely. So I think we can rest assured that we won't see any rate cuts. And the market probably knows that if they've been watching that tool that I've just looked at. So as a result of that, we may not see any real movement the moment we see that number. It might just be a damp squib like it has been actually for the last number of occasions. No cuts, nothing happened. No cuts, nothing happened. No cuts, nothing happened. And so we've got into this sort of stagnated, I don't know, a sort of feeling of complacency that things are just carrying on as normal. But if they did do something weird or even increase the interest rate, now that's also incredibly unlikely, but it has not, it's not unheard of. These sorts of strange adjustments have been done before, particularly emergency cuts. So that's the one we need to be most aware about. But the important thing that's going to happen, discounting all of that happening and barring all of that happening, is that we will get the Fed discussion with the press half an hour after that rates announcement. And during that speech and presentation by Jerome Powell, we'll find out a little bit more about what the Fed thinks is lying ahead in the future. And if they become a slightly more dovish, we might see the market rally, the stock market rally, and bond yields begin to drop and that sort of thing, and the dollar begin to drop a little bit. But if he's not dovish but not hawkish, I don't think we'll see any big move. But if he's incredibly hawkish, I think we'll see the markets begin to come off quite a lot. But we'll have to play that as we see it, as it plays along. We're not going to make any predictions on that. That's coming up on Wednesday. We're talking about news still, just to remind you where we are in this whole thing. And then on Thursday, of course, we've got the NATGAS storage. I don't know what the numbers are. There are no projections here on my FX book just yet. But if I scroll down to Thursday and have a look at the natural gas stuff down here, if I can find it somewhere down here, natural gas stocks, there we go. So previous was 98 billion, and there's no number written there for the consensus or the expected number. So I don't know what that will be. No idea. But I'm not too worried about that, but just be aware that number comes out on Thursday. And then we've got the US PPI coming out on Thursday as well. But we'll have the CPI on Wednesday, PPI on Thursday, and then the Fed speak, Jerome Powell. We've got to listen to what he's got to say. And then on Friday, and if you just thought it was, that was it, and we were all over it. On Friday, we've got the Bank of Japan's interest rate decision. Now, bear in mind, we've had cuts from several countries, including the European Union so far. The Fed's teetering on the brink of maybe even raising interest rates. I think that's just a red herring, though. People have been speaking about it. And then Japan, who really probably need to raise their interest rates to bring their economy back in, and their currency and inflation and all that sort of exports and imports equations all back into a little bit more balance, plus their heavy reliance on the US bond market. So, and they have to do anything weird that they have to do in collaboration with probably at least the US for sure, but probably the EU as well. So they don't just act unilaterally, willy-nilly. They often consult their trading partners before they do anything. So we'll find out about that too. And then we've got the Michigan Sentiment Survey on Friday, which is not marked as important or incredibly important here, I don't think. Yeah, it is marked as important. Well, it should be, because it is important. And that we'll find out about what consumer sentiment's all about, given the interest rate cuts in the EU and the sentiment about jobs and inflation and elections and all the talk about Bidenomics and shrinkflation and who started inflation. And if Trump gets elected, will inflation come down? If Biden gets elected, re-elected, will inflation keep staying at high levels? It has come down a bit, of course. So all of this news is coming out. I want you to be aware of that. So the big days really on Wednesday and Thursday. Wednesday we've got the Japanese PPI, we've got UK GDP, we've got the US inflation, core inflation and CPI. We've got the US FOMC Fed meeting on Thursday. On Wednesday. And on Thursday we've got natural gas, we've got jobs, we've got PPI, and all that sort of thing. And 2 Fed speakers on Thursday as well. To add to that, I think we got only 1 Fed speaker on Thursday, maybe 2. I think there are 2. Okay, I think that's it for all the news. Now, let's segue into natural gas news. So we'll talk about how this news may affect prices of various commodities and things later on. But we've got the background now. We'll talk about that when we come to the technicals. We've been going for 18, 19 minutes already. Can you believe it? We haven't only got sort of a tenth of the way. So I'm going to try and speed up the pace a little bit. All right, let's have a look at what's in the news about natural gas. First of all, I'm going to check in to see that everyone's still here and that you can still hear me. Play the guitar at the end of a stream. I'll play the guitar for you if you want, a little bit. I'll pick a few tunes if you want. I'm learning the ukulele. I'm not very good at it yet, but I started learning. I gave it up a little bit, and I've just picked it up again. But I can play the guitar. All right, let's have a look at what's going on here. Let's start with natural gas intelligence. And really what I do with these is I read the headlines, natural gas intelligence, natural gas world, have a look at the front page, try and pick up the sentiment. Don't try and look at the minutiae too much. If there is an interesting article, it's worth reading. If there's just headlines which paint a general picture and give you the sentiment, remembering that by the time stuff gets to these mainstream, not really mainstream, but fairly mainstream news media, it's probably already been mitigated by the market or built in. In other words, the market's probably already reacted before these people report on the information. Although you will get stuff that's reported here that's ongoing and that's real and that should be contended with. But remember also that it can be delayed, and sentiment indicators or opinions that are expressed here may be post-fact. In other words, this information gets to them, takes time to get to them, takes time for them to edit it, takes time for them to think about it, have their meetings, discuss it with the editor, and then the chief editor, and the editor-in-chief, and then eventually, whatever, then it's got to go through all the news desks and the printers, not printers anymore, but computer chips and so on, and eventually it gets to you, and it's a little bit old. And so that's why you need to be careful with sentiment expressions. But the real hard data that presented here is fine. So let's see what people are saying. Natural gas futures gain for the 3rd day, supported by late June heat. Okay, so we're not in late June right now. We're on June the 9th. So it's saying late June heat. We know that there's warmer weather projected quite significantly warmer for the next few weeks ahead of us into the rest of June. And they're acknowledging that right here. So they're basically saying, yeah, we are getting hotter weather and this will affect the natural gas price. If they weren't interested in the way that it affected the natural gas price, they wouldn't print it here. It's not a weather channel, it's a natural gas channel. So they're interested in the fact that this may put pressure on prices. In other words, increase demand and drive prices up. Just what they're saying here. A few more of the headlines. Weekly natural gas, okay, that's the one we've just read. Natural gas futures gained for the third day, supported by late June heat. Cash prices slip. Cash prices slip. Okay, all right, that's understandable to an extent. Mexico needs robust natural gas Mexico needs a bit more natural gas. We're just trying to pick up sentiment. I'm not trying to go into the detail. If there was something super interesting and worthy of further investigation, then I would normally go into it. And then here's some June the 7th. So some of these are sort of dated a little while back. Nothing there. Natural gas futures push higher. June heat again. Looks past plump storage build. So the market's looking past plump storage build. So we know that there's been a lot of build up in storage and that there hasn't been enough takeoff to bring prices back up. But what they're saying, with a toasty June temperature outlook helping market to shake off a plump weekly inventory build, natural gas futures probe modestly higher. And then all of these are really saying the same sort of thing. All right, so they think that there's going to be upward pressure on the prices because of weather. We already know that, so not a lot to be said there, unless we want to read into some of these articles and so on, but I don't think we need to. We know what the general idea is. Now, going across to natural gas world, some of the headlines: combining strong regulation and multiple blah, blah, blah about all the green stuff. And I understand the concerns about natural gas with leakage and flaring and that sort of thing, with leakage of methane being a particular problem with greenhouse gas, global warming, and greenhouse gas as a greenhouse gas, rather, and trapping in heat into the Earth's atmosphere. Methane's a big offender in that sense. So I understand that there are environmental concerns, but probably not as bad as coal or diesel or petrol or gasoline, as you call it. So there are ongoing concerns, and these will continue to be raised by governments. They'll continue to want to move to green energy. There may be some speeding up and slowing down of that process, depending on politics and countries and so on, but that's the general way that the world probably is moving. There's a little article here about gases there for the long run in China's energy transition. So I suppose I haven't read this article either, but I will do. This is the sort of research I do during the week, not on the weekend. But I'll start to read some of these articles. That one looks like it might be interesting. So if we clicked on there, I don't want to lose my place on this home page and not be able to get back. But there's some articles here that you can read on what China's up to. NatGas has a long-term role to play in the China energy transition, etc. They've got to go away from coal and oil and that sort of thing. So that's interesting. So some demand from China. A lot of that depends on China's industrial demand and industrial demand produced by industrial output. And we need China, if they're going to be taking up natural gas, to be strong in their economy, just like we need the US and the EU to be strong in the economies to keep the natural gas price up. I think that's the biggest threat to natural gas prices. Really is exactly that. So yeah, I don't know. I think let's talk about that a little bit later, because I don't want to delay time, waste time on that. And then there's a scrolling news thing here. Germany gets informal go-ahead to support gas-fired power. So overall, and then the Freeport, we know about Freeport. We talked about it last week. Freeport's getting up, I think, about 100% capacity now. So all that's positive for gas. General sentiment seems to be a little bit more optimistic in the last number of weeks. As anything else, Freeport LNG sues 3 contractors over defects. It's always breaking down. I'm not surprised that they're suing someone. And then Asia spot prices hold at 6-month high as hot weather drives demand. So heat in Asia as well. And I'm assuming that's heat in the Asian region. And spot prices are high there as well. And Norway gas flow to Britain resumes after repair. So gas flowing into Britain. So maybe there's a little bit of a gas bounce back at the moment. I don't know, but it all looks quite positive for natural gas. So is that translated over into the COT reports? So let's have a look. So the first thing I wanted to point out here is on this barchart.com, if you go to